Have you ever been in a situation where you could clearly see the red flags, but you stayed anyway? Where friends gently said, "Are you sure about this person?" And you found yourself defending them. Where every piece of evidence told you this wasn't right, but something inside you just wouldn't let it go. Now you're not alone and you're not irrational. You're caught in what I call the fantasy trap. The fantasy trap is this: you have fallen in love not with who someone actually is, but with who you believe they could be. The version of them you have constructed in your mind, the potential you can see in them, even when they're not living up to it, the person they were for that brief window at the beginning of the relationship, before reality started to show itself. And the fantasy version, that version is perfect. That version understands you. That version chooses you. That version becomes everything you need. The problem is that version doesn't exist. Now here's how it works at a psychological level. When we meet someone who triggers our attachment system, who activates that deep longing, the mind begins to fill in the gaps. Where there is uncertainty, it substitutes for hope. Where there's inconsistency, it creates explanation. Where there is a red flag, it finds a reason. They're just going through a hard time. They didn't mean it like that. Once things settle down, they'll show up differently. I know it. And so the fantasy is maintained, not because you're naive, but because the fractured self needs it to be true. It needs this person to be the answer, because the alternative, that this isn't it, feels just too painful to accept. There are two psychological mechanisms at the core of the fantasy trap. Idealisation, the process of elevating someone beyond reality, seeing only what you want to see, amplifying the good, minimizing or explaining away the rest. And the second is projection. Projection is when we place our inner world onto another person. We project the love we want them to feel. We project the capacity for change we hope they have. We project the version of them that exists only in our imagination. And then we fall in love with our own projection. We fall in love with ourselves reflected back, not with them. This is why letting go of someone who was never fully there can feel like one of the most devastating losses you've ever experienced, because you're not just grieving them, you're grieving the version, the hope, the future you had already built in your mind. You're grieving the answer you thought you'd finally found, and that grief is real, even if the thing you're grieving was never entirely real. The fantasy also serves another function that's important to understand. It protects you from having to look at your own wound. As long as you're focused on them, on their potential, on fixing their relationship, on trying to get back to how it was, you don't have to look inward. You don't have to sit with the question, what inside me needs this so badly? What part of me keeps choosing unavailability? What am I actually looking for? And why do I believe I can only find it in someone who doesn't fully give it? The fantasy keeps you looking outward, and healing asks you to look in. Coming out of the fantasy trap doesn't mean becoming cynical, doesn't mean closing your heart or stopping yourself from hoping. It means learning to see clearly. It means developing the capacity to hold reality alongside your desire for love, to see someone for who they are, not who you wish they were, to feel the red flags in your body and trust them, trust your intuition, rather than explain them away. This is one of the most profound gifts of healing, the return of discernment, the ability to choose from a place of truth rather than longing. So in the next episode, we begin the real work of change. Parts integration, meeting the fractured self with compassion, understanding the role she has played, and beginning the process of bringing her back into wholeness. This is where the healing truly begins. Are you ready? See you in the next video.